Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us on another exciting edition of Global Insights on For You Media Africa this day, the 28th day of May 2024. And today we are going to be talking about the latest happenings in Burkina Faso, one of the countries in West Africa that suffered from a coup that saw military leaders take control of power in the country. Now, the military transition in Burkina Faso is not ending anytime soon after an approved new charter stipulates that the current authorities will stay in power for another 5 years. Participants in national talks last Saturday that included civil society representatives, the security and defense forces and lawmakers in the Transitional Assembly proposed extending the transition back to democracy by 60 months from July, according to the charter. The charter also allows Captain Ibrahim Traoré to run for president when the elections take place. The national talks in Ouagadougou were, however, boycotted by most political parties. Now, this latest development comes as the military was due to end its stay in power with an election scheduled for July this year. The military had promised to hold elections soon to restore civilian rule, but also said that security considerations would take priority. They seized power in a coup in 2022, accusing the elected government of failing to keep their promises. Now, it is worth noting that this extension of power of the transitional military government came just a few weeks after Burkina-based marched on the streets demanding for Captain Ibrahim Traoré's mandate to be prolonged. Now, what then is in play for the West African country with this turn of events? So that's what we are going to be looking at this day on Global Insight, the latest developments in Burkina Faso. What is taking place, or what is going on in Burkina Faso that the transitional military government, its mandate has been extended by 5 years, to be precise, by 60 months, as the text of the charter says in Saturday's talks. So that's going to be our the topic of discussion this day on the program. Please stay with us as we continue to take a look at what is happening around Africa and precisely in Burkina Faso. You're welcome back, and if you're just joining us, you are watching Global Insights on For You Media Africa, and today we're talking about Burkina Faso. Now, latest information from that country, from that part of Africa, indicates that the mandate of the transitional military government in place has been extended by 5 years, and we should recall that the military government had actually said elections were going to take place in July this year. However, after national talks on Saturday in the Ouagadougou, decision was arrived at that the mandate will be extended by 5 years, to be precise, 60 months. So that's what we are going to be talking about this day on Global Insight. Without much ado, let's get straight away to the United States of America to meet our panelist, one of our panelists for the day, in the person of Mr. EKEU. He is a banker as well as an international financial expert. Hello, sir, and thanks for honoring our invitation this day on the program.
Good afternoon, Ms. Loom. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be your guest on your show. This is a very appreciated show around the world, so I'm honored to be invited. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you with us and for you to always take out time to be with us to talk about issues that concern Africa as well as the globe at large. We shall equally be joined subsequently on the program by Priestley EKANE, who is an international relations expert, and he will be joining us from Germany. So these are the two gentlemen that will be exchanging with us this day to talk about what is happening in Burkina Faso, this extension of the mandate of the transitional military government. What's in play? What is going on? Why was this decision taken? We know very well that the people of Burkina Faso have always stood behind Captain Ibrahim Traoré, who came to power in September 2022 after taking over power in a coup. But before we begin our discussions this day with Mr. ACHILLE, let's first of all take this report presented to us by Widoven Berry as with regards to this latest developments in Burkina Faso.
The military government in Burkina Faso will stay in control of the country's affairs for the next 5 years. This decision follows consultative talks on May 25, 2024 among civil society, security forces, transitional lawmakers, among others, as announced by Colonel Moussa Diallo, the chairman of the National Dialogue Organizing Committee. Captain Ibrahim Traoré remains in command as Burkina Faso fights to uphold its political and economic sovereignty. The new charter also highlights Captain Traoré's eligibility to run in the next presidential elections. It also underscores the possibility to undergo the polls before the end of the 5-year transitional period. Since assuming power in September 2022, Captain Ibrahim Traoré has been tasked with navigating complex security challenges as a significant portion of the country's territory remains outside government control. According to report, Burkina Faso continues to face violence from Muslim extremists associated with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group, leading to a widespread displacement and a humanitarian crisis. In an effort to address these security concerns, the transitional president emphasized that patriotism will be the primary factor in the appointment of deputies, underscoring the importance of the country's people in achieving full sovereignty. The transitional government initially planned to hold elections by July 2024 to transition Burkina Faso back to civilian rule, with Traoré being able to participate as candidate at the end of the extended transition period. However, the current geopolitical situation in the country necessitated the extension of Captain Ibrahim Traoré's mandate. The extension of the term highlights the ongoing challenge of restoring stability in Burkina Faso amidst persistent security threats. Burkinabés have welcomed the decision, praising the military ruler as the liberator of the nation.
Thank you so much, Widoven Berry, for that report. Now, Captain Ibrahim Traoré has been given the go-ahead to run the country for another 5 years, as he is the one who heads the transitional government of that West African country right now. So the national talks in Ouagadougou on Saturday has given him and his government to rule the country until after 60 months, when elections will be prepared and conducted. And he has equally been given that opportunity to run for president after this transitional period comes to an end. Now let's get back to Mr. EKEU. Now, Mr. EKEU, taking a look at this latest development in Burkina Faso, what are your general thoughts on this? Did you see this kind of decision coming from Burkina Faso?
Well, thank you, Ms. Long, for the question. I think it was to be expected. I mean, at least from my point of view, right? I think You know, the situation in Burkina Faso got better with President Traore in charge, and compared to what it was, when he took over, because that country was like 80%, conquered by terrorists, and he had to do an exceptional job of fighting those terrorists, and and that most people think they are financed by European, all these European countries that are coming behind us and telling us, what we need to do. And they've been, especially France and United States, they've been in those areas in the Sahel region for years, but they haven't done anything whatsoever to prevent the catastrophic situation that has happened in those Sahelian countries. So what I think the people of Burkina are saying is that they like what the President Ibrahim Traore is going. They appreciate the successes that he had, and they want him to continue, and so that's why they gave him 5 more years, and also gave him the possibility of being a candidate, a presidential candidate after that 5-year time period, which is a statement of trust, and so they think it's important that he remains in power and keeps the fight going, and get better results. So there's a hope, and I think it was something not to be expected, at least from a standpoint of view.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. EKEU. Now, let's say you mentioned something about Burkina Faso experiencing some changes with regards to security ever since Captain Ibrahim Traore came to power. Would you say that with him staying there, the country is going to experience better days? And if you want to evaluate Burkina Faso from the time Ibrahim Traore came to power and present day, what analysis can you make about that?
All right, so thank you for the question. Well, since Mr. President Ibrahim Traore took over the country, in September 2022, he has, done several things. First, he prioritized the fight against terrorism and the restoration of security in the country. President Traore has reorganized the defense and security forces. It has acquired new military equipment and recruited about 10,000 Army and Navy officials. He has also strengthened cooperation with neighboring Mali and Niger to combat terrorism. Secondly, he has demonstrated a commitment to austerity and anti-corruption. So President Traore opted out of receiving a presidential salary, and keeping his military captain salary instead. So, so ministers, also in his government also gave up 50% of their salaries to the National Solidarity Fund, to help displaced people. The government also has passed legislation targeting political patronage and arrested former officials for embezzlement. And we can also cite the fact that President Traore has pivoted away from France and diversified international partnerships. It's meaning that Burkina Faso has really canceled its military cooperation agreement with France. They've expelled the French troops, and the French ambassador, and also expressed interest in strengthening ties with Russia, Iran, Turkey, and Venezuela, to name a few. And so another achievement that Mr. Traore did was the fact that he evoked the legacy of former revolutionary leader Thomas Sankara. So President Traore, and his government have demonstrated, admiration for Sankara's ideals. With Prime Minister Kielem de Tambela declaring a commitment to following Sankara's vision for development. We can also talk about, the launching of big development projects in the country. Meaning that despite the security challenges that the Burkina Faso is facing, President Traore's government has initiated some infrastructure projects, like for example, the construction, of a new airport in Ouagadougou, and also, the construction of gold refineries, in the country, so they can refine the gold and sell it directly instead of letting people selling gold and not being able, the state not being able to account for where those golds are being sold and tracking, how the money from that from those transactions are going. And I would say finally that there's the extension. The extension of the transition period, given by the people of Burkina Faso, will help him restore security, in the country before they can hold elections, and that is important because, while pledging to hold elections in 2024, Traoré, has prioritized the fight against jihadists. Extending military rule by 5 years until 2029. So the argument here is that elections cannot be held until terrorists are destroyed and the country is fully able to organize election and so that every citizen, no matter where they reside in the country, can vote safely. So those are valid points, and those are the things that President Traoré have done. And that really merits him, being given another 5-year term for him to be able to continue his work. And so in addition, we can also add the fact that Burkina Faso has joined with Mali and Niger to form a confederation already at this point. So they are in the process of, finalizing the confederation, the IAS confederation. They are also in the process of printing their own currency, and so there is so much that's going on, and Africa is really looking up to those ILS countries as a template for how we should manage our countries. And I have no doubt they're going to be succeed. They will succeed, and if they succeed, it's a success for Africa, and hopefully other countries will join the IS and Sahelian countries so that this can be replicated across the continent.
Right, Mr. EKEU, thank you so much for that analysis. Now we are going to come back to the issue of creating their own currency. But before then, we know that Captain Ibrahim Traoré actually came to power through a coup because some of the reasons that were advanced was that the democratically elected leaders were not doing enough for the country, especially the jihadist attacks that had been ongoing in the country and crippling the country security wise, and you also made mention of the fact that France, Burkina Faso has actually moved away from some of its foreign partners, especially France, that they have actually sent the French military out of the region. And now let's take a look at the relations that Burkina Faso has now made with other international partners, especially Russia, and in light of this move towards seeking security support from Russia over Western nations. What geopolitical shifts and implications can be expected in this region, that is in West African region, especially in Burkina Faso, particularly in terms of international relations and military alliances?
Right. So I think it's important that the Sahelian countries. What is interesting here now, they have an alliance, and so they are moving towards confederation. I think they already approved some of the articles of organization of that confederation. So they are working in tandem. They are working as a team, right? So if Burkina Faso is attacked by terrorists, they can have all the different support from within the signing countries. Niger can help, Mali can help with weapons, with all kind of satellite images, or all kind of military equipment that each one of those countries have. So if Niger has a strong relationship with Russia, if Mali has a very strong relationship with Russia, and the weapons and the tools that they have, it can be shared among all three countries. De facto, Burkina, is safe in terms of, they're going to be able to use those tools and use even the manpower from those countries to be able to fight those terrorists out of Burkina. And from what we've seen, they have been very successful so far, even though the country is still occupied in some regions by those terrorists. But we have no doubt that if they keep doing this, because I know Burkina is buying more weapons, they're buying more equipment from different countries, like I mentioned earlier, Iran, Russia, China. They're buying more equipment that will allow them to be able to fight on their own. But if they can't succeed on their own, then they have the support of Mali, of Niger, and all the other countries. With support from Russia, they'll be able to succeed. So I have no doubt that that's going to happen.
Right, thank you so much. And just to remind our televiewers that this program is streaming live on YouTube. You can watch us on YouTube for You Media Africa English. You can find this program live. If you're not able to connect to your television sets at this time of the day, you can follow us on YouTube. And today we are talking about the decision to extend the mandate of the transitional military government in Burkina Faso by 5 years, to be precise. The text of the charter says that the mandate is going to be extended by 60 months and elections will take place after that. And the current president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has been given the go-ahead to take part in elections after the transitional period. Now, Mr. EKEU, let's take a look at, you talked about the countries of the AES, of the confederation that is being formed by Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. And one of those things that they are thinking about is creating their own currency, or coming out with their own currency. Do you think this is, as an international financial expert, do you think this is going to be beneficial for these three countries? Is it going to affect their economies positively?
Oh yes, absolutely. I think having full control of your currency, of your money, is important. So because they can have an economic or financial policy that they control fully, especially when it comes to finance. If you don't control your finances, you don't control your currency, then you really have no control over the economy. Because look at the situation with CFA, the CFA franc we have right now. France is controlling the CFA franc. They've been at it since 1945, when General de Gaulle signed that decree to create the CFA franc. And so since that time, France has been taking our resources for free because they're the one printing the money. Somebody prints some papers and sends those papers to you, and then take your resources and enrich themselves. And then in every transaction you do around the world, they have to take 50% of that money and invest into the different stock markets, so they can reap the benefits of all that money. And so, it's just normal, it's just obvious to me that the signing countries should, once they've left ECOWAS or the ECOWAS organization, it's just a matter of time for them to be able to have their own currency. They already stated that they're working on it, and they're going to come one day and just let us know that the currency is on, is a go. And that will give them the power to manage the economies, to be able to transact with any other countries in the world, to be able to decide, the different, approach or political or financial financial policies that they're going to be using with regard to that money, to that currency, and see which alliances they can build with other currencies around the world, so that they can reap the best benefit from transacting with other countries. Now, if they even get into the BRICS organization, that's going to be even better, because BRICS people encourage de-dollarization, meaning that countries should be transacting with their own currencies. They don't need the dollar anymore to be able to buy several different goods like gas and so on. So they're able to transact using their own currency, whereas the CFA people, the CFA countries cannot do the same because they don't own that money. And France still have a 1,000% ownership on that currency, and the different accords that France signed with all these CFA countries are going to be a hindrance for those countries to be able to grow their economies, because they don't have absolutely no control over that currency. So definitely it's a plus for Burkina Faso and the Saharan countries.
Right. We are hoping that most countries in Africa, especially the countries that are glued to the France CFA, can also think of a way of coming up with their own currencies to gain that financial independence from the Western countries or from the outside countries, so that they can control their finances within their means, and how it's going to be beneficial to them, like you rightly mentioned. Now, let's turn a little towards ECOWAS. We know that Burkina Faso, being one of the countries where a coup occurred in 2022, the sub-regional bloc actually laid out sanctions on these countries, especially Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, travel, as well as economic sanctions on these countries. Now, how do you think ECOWAS is going to react? Because as it stands, as of now, ECOWAS, we haven't had any reaction from the regional bloc, that's the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, with regards to this decision to extend the mandate of the transitional military government by 5 years. How do you think the regional bloc is going to react to this decision by Burkina Faso?
Really, I want to say, who cares? Seriously. I want to say, who really cares about what ECOWAS have to say? These three countries have left ECOWAS. They've said so. They've written to that organization, and they don't listen to whatever's happening there anymore. So they have their own agenda. They really don't, whatever. I heard that President Tinubu has put together some panel of experts to try to bring back, and they're not on that level anymore. They're in a different realm now. They're in a different phase, and they're different world. They don't want to deal with all these people anymore. They're tired of just being infuriated to France using ECOWAS as a tool to subdue all these countries, to determine the economic path, and to create all these disaster that they wanted to create. Even trying to go to war. Can you believe that? ECOWAS is an economic organization. It has nothing. It has no. It cannot make any decision. In his statute, it can't make any decision regarding to suspending a country, let alone going to war. It's just inadmissible. And to see this organization being manipulated by France and the Europeans and the Americans, it's just it's a shame. It's a shame. It shows that the leaders of that organization have no backbone. They don't know what they're doing. They just pawns. They're just being used for the purpose of satisfying their colonizers. It's just incredible what we're seeing last year, and with those decisions to try to go to war, with Niger trying to bring back the former president who was toppled. That's not ECOWAS' responsibility. It's not part of the agenda. They've never been created for that purpose. they have to stick to those purposes. All these sanctions that they've been, putting on those countries, on Mali, keeping their, keeping their funds, keeping their money, preventing them from accessing, their own money, in the different banks, of the regional banks in the area. It's just unimaginable. It's unacceptable. And we, as people in Africa, understand that, we don't want to see that kind of scenario happening again, ever. So any organization that is infiltrated, it's exposed to being manipulated by European countries should be dissolved. And that's my belief. And because we have to serve the people of Africa now, we have to start serving Africa. Africa has given so much, for the last 700, 800 years, 800 years. We've suffered, through various, situations, slavery, colonization, neo-colonization. So it's time for Africa to wake up and try to chart its own path, in the world, in the world events, and then they speak with one voice, a strong voice. In order for us to do that, we have to come together. And coming together means we don't want to be infiltrated by any European countries. Whatever they say, it doesn't have to affect us. And what the AS countries are doing is exactly that. So the people of Africa are really supporting them.
Right, and just to add to what you're saying, I think the fact that Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso decided to quit the regional bloc or the sub-regional bloc, ECOWAS, should have come as a wake-up call to all those blocs on the continent that are not there to stand for their own people, because these blocs or these organizations were created to solve the problems of the people. But then if they are not able to solve the problems of the people, then of what use are these organizations or these blocs to the African people? Now let's come back a little to Burkina Faso and take a look at what this latest decision is, or how it's going to affect the country and with what has been happening in the country. Now we have political parties, like I mentioned earlier on at the start. During the national talks on Saturday, we were rightly informed that political parties, most political parties were not present during this talks. Now, how will the country's transitional, the Burkina Faso's transition extension resonate with other West African countries? Well, that's another question. I diverted a little. I want to talk about political parties now, considering the divisions among these political parties in Burkina Faso, because even being the opposition political parties, they still do not stand in Africa, something that is very common in most African countries. The opposition is always there and they don't stand as one. They are even divided amongst themselves. So with these parties, a division within these parties in Burkina Faso over the transition extension, how will the lack of broad participation in the national consultations impact the legitimacy and inclusivity of the decision-making process? Because for any country to move forward, all parties have to come together and put their hands on deck to see how they can move forward.
Well, listen, Ms. Look, this is another, I mean, I don't want to use the word stupidity that people do in our continent. You are a political organization. The country is being hijacked by terrorists. 80% of the country has been taken over by terrorists. And you are not saying, you're still worried about elections. If this is not stupidity, I don't understand what it is. Who is going to be voting? Where are people going to be going to vote? 80% of the country is surrounded by terrorists, and yet you're still trying to get elections. So how people are going to get out, to vote? They can't eat. They can't. They have been displaced around the country. People are dying of hunger. But these are selfish people, and those people are usually, people that the French and the Europeans are pushing, because they don't want the country to be stable. The reason they don't want these things, the president, President Traoré to succeed is really because They don't want those countries to succeed so they can have control and use their resources to their, their advantage. That's all it is. It's just those are resource-hungry countries that are looking to grab, to steal our resources, and for generations. And so when I listen to that kind of, people, not happy because there's no election in the country. Well, we've been having elections for how many years now? What is the results? What are the results of these elections? Those civilian people, they're just there to steal, to sell their countries to the Europeans. Really, it just bothers me. I don't even want to talk about these people. It's just unacceptable. But if somebody comes in your house and surrounds your house and tries to take over your house, the first thing to do is to fight them. You have to fight those people so you can have the freedom to sleep well in your property, in your house, in your property, and then so you can have a plan, now to educate your children, to send your kids to school, so you can implement whatever you want to implement within, your boundaries. But if you have no way, somebody's coming and hijacking your house, your property, you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything. How are you going to be able to go to school? How are you going to be able to go to work? How are you going to be able to do when those people are there? You have to fight them first, and that's exactly what the country needs to do. Burkina Faso, Mali, all these surrounding countries, they are being attacked by terrorists that are being supported by Western countries, and they're being given weapons. Where are those weapons coming from for these terrorists? Where are they getting weapons? They're coming from those European countries. So they're using satellites today. They're using drones. They're using all kind of equipment to continue to attack those countries that have not enough. They don't have enough resources to be able to spend on fighting wars. So, and this has been started by France, Great Britain, and the United States, when they decided to destroy Libya and kill Colonel Gaddafi. That was in 2011, right? So once they did that, they opened a floodgate for these terrorists to come, in the continent, to go everywhere in the continent and create wreak havoc everywhere in the continent. So today they don't want to be accountable for that. They just want to put everything on the heads of these presidents, these military governments in those countries. But they don't want to recognize the fact that those military state or military government, they are succeeding in their fight against those terrorists. Look at Mali. Mali has done a phenomenal job at pushing out all these terrorists and acquiring the equipment, acquiring all the tools that they need to be able to fight those terrorists. And so when I hear those small political parties, argue about power, all that stuff, I look at it and say, hey, it's just stupidity. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Sorry about that.
Yes, Mr. EKEU, I think that's a phenomenon in Africa that Africans have to be schooled on, this issue of political parties not wanting to stand together with the government in place, if at all that government is for the people, because we are looking forward to governments that have the back of their people, that are there to serve their people, like what is going on right now in Burkina Faso, where Captain Ibrahim Traoré taking over power to try to fight against terrorism in the country. And now we have these political parties who don't want to adhere with what is ongoing in the country and actually accept that with the military being in place, things are getting better for the country. So now, how we are taking a look now at Africa as a whole, because this is something that cuts across the continent. How can we make the people of Africa understand that we must not, or let me put it out this way, do you think that Africa needs to follow the form of democracy that has been practiced in the Western world, or Africa has to chart its own way towards coming up with its own kind of democracy?
Absolutely. Africa has to chart its own way. Democracy is an illusion. There's no democracy anywhere. It's democracy is some kind of illusion that is they're setting African countries when it's important, when they want to control them. and other countries, they don't talk about in democracy. For example, those Arab states, right? Saudi Arabia, Qatar. What is democracy? There is no democracy in those countries. So they don't talk about democracy in those places because they need the oil, they need everything that those countries have. But when they come to Africa, hey, these black people, who cares about them? And so they don't really respect us. And so they put that democracy up there, human rights, democracy, for everything that's happening in the country. Somebody has to find some person who's going to say, hey, there's a human rights violation here, and then the Human Rights Watch comes out with his report. Amnesty International comes out with his own report. Everybody comes out with a report about Africa. But look at the U.S. where I live. There's people being killed all the time. Police brutality. People being killed all the time, and we don't hear anything about human rights abuses, right? So you go to France. We saw what happened with those people who were manifesting, the Gilets jaunes. How many people have been killed? Nobody said anything about human rights abuses. Nobody said anything. Look at these Arab countries, violence all the time. Women. It's just unacceptable. But no one says raises a finger. But when it comes to Africa, oh la la, you have everybody that is an expert. They're going to have big reports about Cameroon, there's human rights abuses because Cameroon is trying to fight some folks who are secessionists who want to secede. They separate from the country. No, we can't do that. It's it's human rights abuses. Everywhere they go, they did the same thing in Sudan. They did the same thing in all over the country. That's what they do all over the continent. That's what they do. So because that serves their interest, dividing us more so that it can prevent our unity is of utmost importance to those European and Western countries. So it depends on us now to decide to chart our own course, and we have to figure out how to organize our countries. Use our own systems. When I look at development, we look at China. China is not a democracy, very well developed, right? Number one economy in the world today. You look at Russia, very well developed. You go there, there's no democracy. So even those countries that are calling themselves democracy, they have kings. Many countries have kings. You go to Great Britain, they have kings. You go to all these Norway, all these different, Spain, they have kings all over the place, So, and then they pretend there's a democracy. They have a prime minister who's going to play. So we have to stop listening to those people. Seriously, we have to start charting our own ways and getting out of this democracy box. Democracy, human rights. This is the two words they use all the time. Democracy, human rights. That is, putting us in a situation where we can't do anything. Whatever you try to do, they're going to come up with democracy. You're not respecting democracy, and they're going to sanction you. And then you try to fix it. They come out with human rights abuses. They sanction you. So no matter what you do, so. No, that is unacceptable. We have to chart our own course and then figure out the best way to manage our countries.
Thank you so much, Mr. EKEU. And we're talking about charting our own course in Africa and how we can run our countries independently from the democracy that has been practiced in the West, which, of course, has proven over time that doesn't work for Africa. How do you think Africans can be schooled on this? How can we bring Africans together to understand that we really do not have to rely on this Western democracy to make things move on our own continent?
Well, we have to educate our people. We have to throw away all these books that Europeans are forcing us. I'm sorry?
Okay, now I can hear you.
Okay, yes. So I'm saying it's through education. We have to have we have to write our own history. We have to educate our population to be able to know their own history first and tell the truth. Like I heard, Rwanda is actually mandating, that the genocide that happened in that country be taught in every school in Rwanda. That is a good solution. That is a good way to go. That's a good, that's a good start, because if we forget about this type of situations, then the people of Rwanda are not going to know exactly what happened during that time frame, and know how to prevent that from happening, and know who are the instigator of that situation, who were the countries who supported that, just like apartheid, in South Africa, we know all these people. And so it's important that education be very in the center of the way we are going to educate our people. And so by doing so, we are going to raise a new generation of people who are very tuned to their history, what happened, and to their forefathers and things like that, so they can better understand the future, and then live in a world that is that's of their own creation. Because if they strip you of your history, you have no backbone, no background from where you are going to be able to be a normal citizen in the world. You don't know where you belong. You've lost your past. You don't know where you're going, and so that's what the Europeans want us to be. They want us to be people with no history. And we remember Sarkozy, President Sarkozy of France, went to Senegal and said something like that Africa has no history, and that was an outrage. So yes, so that's what they want, and we have to start listening to those people.
Thank you so much. And I believe that when the West or the outside world sees that there's someone in Africa who is struggling to take the country towards the right path, now they start facing a lot from the outer world. For taking the case of Captain Ibrahim Traore, it is reported that there are abuses that have already taken place by his troops as they are struggling to fight terrorists in the country. So these are already some attacks. Or like say, let me put it as a question to you. Do you think that Captain Ibrahim Traore, in his fight against terrorism, has not taken into consideration his own people, as there are reports in the media already that in the course of fighting this terrorist, citizens or civilians of Burkina Faso have been abused, have been molested?
Again, those reports come from where? Amnesty International, all these organizations, right? So they are the one who are, putting out these type of reports. Human rights abuse, Human Rights Watch. They all, government, entities. That, they depend on the different Western countries. But when we see all those abuses by the military, the U.S. military, we've seen the abuses of the French troops in Central Africa, in many countries, where those French troops go in there and destroy kids, rape kids, girls, little boys, and the American troops in Iraq. Remember, what they did in Iraq and all that stuff. So they don't talk about these things when it comes to Western countries. When we're in a situation of war, nobody can guarantee that nothing bad can happen during the war. That is just it's war. It's a situation where humans are facing death. Humans, people are facing death, and no one wants to die because of because of a mistake or lack of attention or anything like that. So sometimes things could go right, but we can't put that as the lead news of the day. Say, hey, this guy, he instead of killing a terrorist, he shot his friend or his brother or somebody by accident. It's just, so that happens, but it's not something that is being pushed See, the idea of President Traore, letting his troops killing other Burkinabe citizens is just unfathomable. It's just unacceptable. We can admit that sometimes they can have some mistake. That can happen, but it's in the war situation. Sometimes you don't know who is the terrorist and who is the citizen. You may not know because they don't wear military equipment like real soldiers. Mm-hmm. So they hide among the population, and that's how they operate. It's an asymmetrical war. It's difficult to be able to know who is exactly is a civilian, who exactly is a terrorist, because they get mixed in the population. So using that as a way to destroy an army or destroy a country or to accuse a government of killing its own people, that is just beyond the pale. So I'm not going to give any credit to those type of accusations. So I think the government, the military forces in Burkina should go forward and fight the terrorists, the best way they can with all the new tools, the resources, the tools, the equipment that they're buying, that they're being provided to them by other countries other than Western countries, which they don't want to provide any tools at all. They don't want to provide any even though they have paid to buy those weapons or buy those equipments. Western countries don't want to give those weapons or these equipments to those countries to fight terrorists. So yeah, so I think it's just preposterous sometimes to be able to hear this type of accusations that are not founded.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. EKEU. And just a reminder our televiewers that you are live on For You Media Africa, and you can watch the program live on YouTube as we are streaming For You Media Africa English. You can find this program there. And today we are talking about Burkina Faso, where the mandate of the transitional military government has been extended by 5 years, by 60 months, as the text of the charter puts it, and Captain Ibrahim Traore has been given the go-ahead to take part in elections even after the transitional period. So we are looking at what's in play in all of this. Would this decision actually benefit the West African country, and how is this decision being taken by the West? We know that one of the country's major partners, that's France, its former colonial master, was sent out of the country. Their troops were sent out. Actually, Burkina Faso has severed ties with France and is now with Russia. This decision to extend the stay in power of the military regime, how is this decision going to affect the Western world, or how is the Western world taking this decision by coming from national talks in Burkina Faso to have Captain Ibrahim Traore and his current government to run the country for the next 5 years? So that's what we are discussing about this day. Coming back to you, Mr. EKEU, we know that when this military takeovers happened across this West African countries, because when you take a look at this military takeovers, it has happened mostly in West African countries, and now to be more precise with Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, of course, which we know are forming a confederation that will see these countries look out for each other. We know when this military takeovers happened, there were a lot of criticisms from within the continent and outside the continent that power should be returned to a civilian. But now we have Burkina Faso extending the mandate of the current military regime. Would you say that sometimes to get things right in Africa, or how do you evaluate military takeovers at some point in Africa? Would you say that it is necessary?
Well, listen, we have a unique situation here. Before France and United States and Great Britain destroyed Libya and killed Colonel Gaddafi, we weren't facing this type of situation. I mean, it's just It's just, and they were warned, and some of the leaders in Africa, especially, I believe, the former Niger president, warned Mr. Obama that if they destroy Libya, it's going to wreak havoc in the whole continent, the sub-Saharan continent, the Sahelian countries, principally. And so they didn't listen to him. They pretended that they decided to go forward and continue with the actions of destroying or killing the President Gaddafi. Right. So so they have those military coup. Those military coup, are not happening in the vacuum. They had civilian leaders in those countries for years. While those terrorists were invading the country. Those civilian leaders haven't done anything. France brought its own troops in Mali, in some of many of these countries, but did nothing. For example, look at Mali. Mali was invaded, about 20% of the country was invaded when the French troops arrived in Mali. And by the time they were kicked out, they were asked to leave, the country was invaded at 80%. And so, and the military people, the Mali military who was fighting those terrorists, when they got to Kidal, which is one of the strongholds of terrorists, in Mali. The French troops, the French troops prevented them from killing those killing those terrorists, and dislodging them in that area. So it's a lot of things that are happening, and France has been accused, by the way, by the military government in Mali, of supporting those terrorists. They had evidence. They wanted to show the world. They want the United Nations to have a special session, for them to be able to show the proof that they had against the French government supporting those terrorists. So they have all the reasons to stand up, to those invaders, to those colonial powers, and protect their country, protect the livelihood, protect the citizens. There is no, I fully support those military governments, because thanks to them, they are now winning. The terrorists are the ones running around now. They're now winning, that fight. And the more time they get, the more equipment they get. The more information they get about the terrorists, they're able to put together strategies, and then getting into an alliance, which is one of the best decisions African countries have taken in a long time. Getting together to fight to fight this war together. And putting all the resources so that terrorists can run from one country to another country, and so that is one of the best solutions we've seen in a long time in Africa. And I really feel that it's a good way. It's the best way to go. It's a good way to go, and that they will be able to succeed. And so when it comes to those people who are criticizing the governments, those governments, for staying longer than well, it's not on their own volition, right? So they wanted to have this war done by the time they expected to leave the leadership, and pass on and organize elections, and then have some civilian, take over. But the fight is still ongoing. The terrorists are stronger than ever. They have more equipment, they have more tools, more resources, more weapons. And so what do? Do we, organize, stupid elections, in different areas where people can vote, and then elect somebody who has no legitimacy, who's a civilian, who is another pawn of the French and the Americans, so they can put the country, at the risk again? No, I think they should stay in power until this situation is solved. There is no urgency for a civilian leadership in those countries, because the civilians have shown they don't have the character to be able to fight this type of wars. And so they have to stay there until the job is done.
Right, the Africa must not go with what the whole world wants. Africa must go with what works for Africa. And talking about elections, like you mentioned there, that stupid elections, Africans should not capitalize on elections in order to have their countries running. They should go with what goes for the people. If at all an African country has a leader that stands for the people, then it should be the place of the people to stand behind that leader, leaders like Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Now, you mentioned rightly earlier on that Burkina Faso under Captain Ibrahim Traoré has actually made some gains in securing its territory and driving out the terrorists in the country, the Islamists who had taken hold of the country, had taken over 80% of the country. And Captain Ibrahim being in place, he has done quite a lot and he's doing a lot. And you have actually applauded this decision to extend his mandate by 5 years. Now, how do you think this prolonged transition period will actually impact efforts towards rebuilding and stabilizing Burkina Faso?
Right. So I know it's difficult. You know, they have limited resources. You know, they have so many different challenges they have to undertake at the same time. You know, on different fronts, on the economic fronts, on the financial fronts, on on the military front. You know, so they have so much to do. But that's what the government is doing. That's what they have to do. And thankfully, the population is behind them. You know, the population is behind Captain Traoré's government. You know, they're supporting Captain Traoré's. You know, Captain Traoré's have been facing many different, attempted coup recently, right? So we know that. And every time that there's a rumor about something like that, the population is on the street, protecting him and his government. So that is the way to go. We don't have to sit there and complain. No, it's not calling Russia, calling friends, No, we have to do what we can on our own first. And then those countries, if they have willingness to be able to help us, then they can come in and help us. But we have to do what we need to do. We have to die for our country if that needs to be. We have to. This is the only country we have. This is the only place we have on this planet. If we can fight and die for our country, then no one will do it for us. We can't be trying to enjoy life and being invaded by terrorists. People killing your population, your brothers and sisters, and you're just trying to enjoy life. No, you have to get in the battle and fight, until you die, if needs be. So that's what they're doing. Captain Traoré said that he will give his life for his country. We look at the president, the president of Mali said the same thing. So same thing for the president of Niger. So those are people who are willing to die for their countries. All this material stuff, money, luxury life, that happens when the country is free of risk, where everybody is happy, when everybody can raise his kid, in a safe environment, when everything is normal. But in an abnormal situation, we have to sacrifice, all of us, and so I think those countries have to keep doing what they're doing. And, I don't want to repeat myself all the time, but I feel like this is exactly what they're doing is exactly what we need to do. So yeah, definitely.
And I think Africa needs leaders like this that are ready to die for their people. These are the kinds of leaders that Africa is looking forward to having, that put the people first. And we can also relate this to the Ghanaian, the late Ghanaian president, Jerry Rawlings, who actually also took power in Ghana through a coup in 1981. And after serving for 2 terms, he actually handed back power to civilian, but then during his stay in power, we discovered that Ghana actually enjoyed a lot. Ghana benefited a lot. So if there is a leader in place that can actually take the country forward, be it a military or a civilian, it is for the people to be able to determine if this leader in place is a good one, has the the thoughts or the people are at heart. Those are the kinds of leaders that we should be encouraging on the continent, just to say. Now, let's take a look at how this extension of the transition in Burkina Faso is going to affect the aspirations of the citizens for the democratic governance and socio-economic development, particularly in the context of ongoing challenges and uncertainties. Do you think we already know that the people of Burkina Faso are standing behind Captain Ibrahim Traoré? And when we talk of the people, we are talking of the common man on the streets, and we are not talking about the opposition parties who were not present during the national talks in Ouagadougou on Saturday. How do you think this whole process is going to shape the minds of these people?
Well, I mean, the people are 1,000% behind their leaders. So, you know, from that standpoint, we can only see success. We can only see things getting better. You know, as long as you have the support of your population, of your people, you can do anything. You can reach, you know, any boundaries. You can go wherever you want to go. You know, the key here is to have that communication, you know, constant communication about what the government is trying to do. You know, explain to the population what they're trying to do and get their support. Once they have their support, that's it. You know, so no other countries can come and fight, you know, a population, you know, when they are supporting their leader. It's just very difficult, you know. But and so on the economic front, the country is going to get better. You know, everything has to start somewhere and then gets better, you know, as time goes by. And, you know, when we look at the Sahelian countries, you have a feeling that in the next 5 to 10 years, these countries are going to be, you know, very powerful on the military front, on the economic front, because they are going to be creating their own currency, a currency that's backed by gold that they have. You know, they have so much gold. It's just unimaginable how much you know, gold they have. And so they can back their currency with gold and then make it a strong currency that could be used to transact around the world without any issue. So you know, so from here, I just think you know, whatever happens, you know, in the future, you know, if the country is solidified by you know, first, you know, kicking out or destroying all the terrorists, creating infrastructures in the country that will allow people to be able to do commerce, to transact, you know, putting together a healthcare system in the country, putting together, you know, all the different tools that the country need to be able to be successful. I think in addition to the alliance that they have, in addition to the fact that they have been fighting wars and they've been to war, they know what war looks like, they know how to protect their countries. They are just going to be way better than many other countries that are not doing the same thing, and especially the CFA countries. So I believe that the future is going to be bright for those countries in the future, in the short term, and I think they have to keep doing what they're doing.
Thank you so much, Mr. EKEU. And one last question before we wrap up this edition of Global Insights. Now, going by this new charter, it is said that quotas will no longer be, now we are talking about the whole political process in the country and how this military government is struggling to put things in place, so much so that things can go well in the country. And under this new charter, quotas will no longer be used to assign seats in the National Assembly or in the Assembly of Members of traditional parties. Instead, as the text mentions, patriotism will be the only criteria for selecting deputies. What do you think about that?
Yes, country first. Patriotism is what we need in Africa right now. We are so scattered. The countries can't come together because there are people who are not there because they're serving their country. They're serving, foreign countries. And so if we know for a fact that somebody is serving a foreign country, he should be, removed from his office, removed from his seat, wherever he, whether it's in the parliament, whatever, so we can have somebody who's really there for the country. And we see this in all these European countries. That's what they do, So we have to look at what they did to get where they are today, and try to see, if something that we can use in our own countries. If you are an elected member of parliament and you can fight for your country, you are caught, doing deals with foreign countries because you just want to earn a little bit of money, you want to get a little bit of, money here and there to buy a brand new car or build a new house or whatever, those materialistic stuff that people, die for, in our continent. It's nothing. Those are things that don't develop a country. You just focus on yourself, your own selfish interest. We want people who are going to fight and die for their countries, and if that's what the government and the people of Burkina Faso have decided, so be it. And I support that 1,000%, because that's the way we're going to be able to fight, foreign countries that are interfering in our processes, in our countries, that are derailing our development. People who are embezzling funds to go and hide abroad in different banks abroad. All these things, we need to stop that. If you're somebody that is identified as being that type of person, you shouldn't be in power. You shouldn't have any seat whatsoever. You shouldn't be elected. Nothing should happen to you, and then until you change your mind. So that's what I think.
I think with the new Africa we have today, we are looking forward to patriotic Africans who can stand for their people, Africans who can give up their lives for their people. And this new decision in Parliament that members of Parliament will be assigned, it's only through patriotism. I think that's a good move, as you've rightly mentioned. It is a good move by the current government in place in Burkina Faso. And of course, Captain Ibrahim Traoré now has an extra 5 years to put things in place. And I believe most Burkinabés are very, very happy with this decision to extend the mandate of the current military regime in the country. And like you mentioned, the country has actually made gains in the fight against the terrorists, something that those are one of the reasons that were evoked by Captain Ibrahim Traoré as he took over power in a coup in 2022. Now, just your last words before we go, Mr. EKEU. Do you see other countries keen in to this decision, other African countries keen into this decision that was taken to extend the mandate of the current military regime? And what are your last words with regards to this?
Well, the people of Burkina Faso have spoken. That's all that matters. If other countries want to, whether they like the decision or not, really doesn't matter. The only thing that matters are the people of Burkina Faso supporting the government, the current government, supporting the efforts that the military government is putting forth to be able to fight and liberate the country from terrorist organizations and their supporters. So that is what matters. So anything outside of Burkina Faso, it's really marginal. Nobody should listen to that. It's just talk. And as I've seen, we've seen the ECOWAS leaders trying to bring back all these IRS countries into ECOWAS. For what purpose? They've said clearly that they don't belong in that organization anymore. They don't want to hear about ECOWAS. They don't want to hear about people coming to negotiate to bring them back. They don't want to hear. They're in a different path, in a different level. They're putting together a confederation. They're creating their own currency. They're forging alliances that are very strong militarily and economically in the future. So they're in a different path. And so all these talks, behind the scenes is just noise. And I think they shouldn't care, about what those, infiltrated leaders are talking about. So the people of Burkina Faso have spoken, and this is my last word. I think they should go forward with their plan. Keep supporting the government. Not allowing foreign countries to interfere in their decision, in their countries' issues and matter. So they should be able to, to conduct themselves as, great citizens of the country, of the countries, and not, allow people who have sold their souls to Western countries to hold any position in the government or any position whatsoever when it comes to leading the country. So good decisions. I support what Burkina have done, and these are countries that we are looking forward to imitate. They should emulate other countries to do the same. And once we get to that point where we can unite and have this, the same vision, Africa is going to be free from these colonizers and these, these terrorists and their acolytes and friends who are trying to, keep Africa in the darkness for the next, 1,000 more years. So that's what I have to say. Thank you so much for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mr. ACHILLE EKEU. He is a banker and international financial expert in the United States of America. I want to thank you so much for honoring our invitation, and we are looking forward to having you in subsequent editions of the program. Thank you so much. Tell our viewers, it is on that note that we call it quits on this edition of Global Insight. It's always a pleasure to know you out there, and we are here to serve you. And we have been looking at the current situation in Burkina Faso, where the current military regime has, the mandate of the current military regime has been extended by 5 years, so much so that the country can chart a way forward towards elections, maybe, or maybe not. And of course, the current government is in place, has been doing what it can to fight against terrorism, like our guest rightly said there. Do not go away. Don't forget to join us once again on Thursday for another exciting edition of the program. Until then, you have a lovely moment in the company of more programs on For You Media Africa.